Welcome to the all-new Grizzly Habits Podcast Studio, where we got some comfy couches, the dog at the feet.
And we also have our guests virtually this time. We've got it set up so that we can now talk to friends across the United States and hear their stories about their success.
Yeah, because not everyone wants to come to our creepy bonus room above the garage. Today's episode, we have Jake and Adre Versey talking about business ownership and racing razors.
The really interesting thing about their story is they make it sound really easy. Jake talks about his 150-mile commute to work every day like it's no big deal.
Which is quite the sacrifice. So let's hear what they have to say on today's episode about becoming a professional razor racer. Welcome to Grizzly Habits, episode number 6. We're here with two of our really good friends that we've known for quite a while. They're chasing their own dream, but what we like to promote on Grizzly Habits is just that exactly, chasing your dream, creating your own path, and then going forward with it. And when you think of a lot of the things we say when we're young kids of what we want to do when we grow up, a lot of it's like a professional race car driver, astronaut, all of the above, business owners, and we're going to hear what it takes from Jake and Adre about what it takes to become a professional race car driver. Not necessarily like the grind on the weekend and staying on the top of the podium, but maybe all the side hustles and everything that it takes to keep going. But I always like to start with how we met. So I don't know if you guys remember, but what's really powerful about any sort of, whether it's brand building, whether it's building a business, a lot of that success comes from your network. So I'd like to just introduce people on how I met them. And of all places, we met at a rally up in Mackay, Idaho. Rally in the Pines, which was where I had a business that I was hustling back in the day. And I don't even remember. Do you remember how it all went down? I know we did a night ride, which was a blast. We went out and kind of cruised around in the Pines. And then it kind of just evolved from there. We did a bunch of rides in Moab. And then Jake, you got started in your racing career with Travis, and then it's been nice watching you from the sidelines ever since then. So kind of cool to hear that story. But what got you started in racing back in the day? Like what was your decision to say, I'm going to go race razors?
Yeah, it just was like a development that just kind of ended up happening. It wasn't an overnight decision that said I've got to go racing. It was just the stars kind of aligned. We had started going to the sand dunes, and that was a lot of fun. I've always enjoyed like aggressive driving, and you can't really on the streets. You're just going to end up, in trouble or get speeding tickets all the time, which we did do. But at the sand dunes, we met some friends, and we all started having a good time. And one of them was Travis Zollinger, who owned Zollinger Racing Products. And he had raced snowmobiles historically, and he was somewhat new to the side-by-side industry as far as manufacturing. So he had a unique goal of testing and figuring out, what does and doesn't work in UTV parts, and the best way to do that is racing. So long story short, he had a couple race cars, and he needed another guy to bring on, so he had offered me a job. And at the time, I was working a great job here in Idaho Falls, and I, had no intention of commuting 150 miles to Logan or moving. So that kind of went on for a while, and I said, thanks for the offer, but no can do. And then I started going to races with him, just helping out, and obviously caught the bug, and we were coming up to King of the Hammers, and I had been offered the job several more times, and I couldn't go to King of the Hammers because I was out of PL, and at the job I had, it was a government job. It had a ton of PL. It was ridiculous.
And 6 weeks.
Yeah. So I've blown through all that. The only way to go to King of the Hammers is to quit my job and take a job with him. And obviously I wanted it bad enough, and I thought it was a sustainable future for me. And so we took the jump. So that's how, in a nutshell, I got into racing.
So you came home from a long weekend. Adre, you're probably with them, but let's say you came home from racing, you walked in, you dropped your bags, and you said, Adre, I'm going to do it.
I'm quitting my job.
Yeah. It was a pretty major conversation, because to agree to go race was meant the possibility, because Zollinger Racing Products was 150 miles from our house in Idaho Falls. And so, I mean, that's a big commitment. Basically, we agreed to relocate. That if it came to that, we were willing to relocate, which included Pet Central. So we had like made arrangements to possibly open up a Pet Central in Logan, Utah. So it was.
We were pretty serious about moving.
Yeah.
And I was telling my clients, hey, I'm going to be moving to Utah. So it was serious.
Yeah. It was, what ended up happening with that was I commuted back and forth. I kind of came up with a schedule. I would stay 2 nights in Logan. We worked 4 days a week, and I would drive home 2 nights. And it made it feel like I was home enough. And also, obviously, I was in Logan enough to fulfill work obligations. So we did that for 2 years, and really it was working out great, just commuting. Adre's business was thriving, and during the whole process was getting better and better to where it was getting harder to leave her business.
So what has to happen mentally for you to consider all of these different things you've had to rally together to make it possible? But a lot of things for entrepreneurship. I'm a big fan of MJ DeMarco. He wrote a book called Unscripted, and he has these things, and I can't quote them because this is a non-explicit podcast, but he has it's called an FTE and an FTM. There's a F this moment and there's an F this event. And throughout our careers, we have a lot of these events that are like, I want to do my own thing. I want to do something different. I want to chase my dream. But then you say, oh, I have a mortgage to pay. I have all these things. I can't do it. I'm going to go back to my job. And then until you have this pivotal moment that just triggers everything in your mind to say like, look, I'm going to go race. I'm going to figure out how to make it happen. I have a supportive wife next to me and we're going to go get it. Like, what happened to you to say, I'm going to do everything I can to make this happen? Because you make it sound easy. He
was out of PTO, so he decided to quit.
You're out of PTO, so you're going to quit.
I was thinking 6 figures. I mean, it was a deal that was not easy to walk away from. No, kind of my F this moment was, fortunately, we've up to this point, we've actually been able to have a couple, one on my end and one on Adre's end, which is really cool. At one point,
nice.
I was making all the bills, and right now, currently, Adre's making all the bills. So
teamwork.
There you go.
Yeah, we've gone both ways on the spectrum. But no, on the racing side, the moment. So the government job that I had was a nuclear cleanup project out in Arco, Idaho. So there's a couple nuclear reactors, and then there's a bunch of cleanup waste from like the 60s all the way to the 80s. It's actually a cool project, but being highly government regulated with everything, anybody with a lot of ambition or quote unquote entrepreneur, it's the golden handcuffs of a job. So it's killer money, killer 401k. Everything's good. Like growing up, I think they employ like 20,000 people in the area. So everyone wants to get a job at the site. So I got a job out there, and it was a few years in, but it's just like so mind numbing because you can't, you can't be a go-getter. You can't do anything extra. You have to just do your job, just show up. And it was really a personal gratification issue that I wasn't getting.
And you were doing your own business essentially before that job of driving. You were 1099.
Yep. So I had tasted some of freedoms, and then went out there, and you wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and you don't get home till 8 p.m. 4 days a week. I mean, that's like you can't even mow your lawn after work. So it was a freedom deal. It was a lifestyle deal that we were trying to change. So that was what really pushed it for me. And then the opportunity to do it had a lot to do with Adre and her success. Without her, I literally wouldn't be here, couldn't have done it. So
that's awesome that you guys have been able to round up the teamwork and really sit down and have that conversation and say, hey, look, it's a dream. It's a plausible dream. You went out, you hit the road with Travis, and you proved yourself. You went out and you got a couple podiums out early on and got some energy behind it. So it wasn't like anything was handed to you by any means. You had to make a lot of sacrifices to go out there. And even today, you unfortunately had a bad accident. You wrecked in your last, well, not your last race. I think it was 2 races ago, right? Cause you came back you came back for hammers. But even that, now you have a wrecked car and just rallying back together where it takes everything out of you just to keep the momentum alive. But you guys are doing it, which is really cool. So kudos to that.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's definitely a hustle.
It's a hustle. And just to explain your personality to all of our listeners too, is, Jake's the kind of guy that I think your mind tells you that you want to do everything first, but you are the guy to do everything first. Or even just riding, if there's an obstacle and nobody's done, I still think to this day, you were the first person to do, you've got to be, what is it? Freaking nuts, super nuts.
You got to be totally nuts.
Totally nuts. You got to, there's an obstacle. You've got to be nuts. And to the left of it is a straight wall that you've got to be totally nuts. And I remember we're eating lunch and all of a sudden we look over and like, who's going up? Oh, it's Versey. Yep. And you did it. And then I think the same trip you did a high dive backwards, which I've still never seen anyone other than you do that in a RZR, but that's just your mindset. So just a little bit of a tease there for everyone listening. Like that's the mindset we're dealing with, is if you see something, you go out and get it. And it's been cool watching. There's a lot of technological advancements with racing now. So it's nice to see like the live streams, and we're able to follow you out there. And it's kind of fun to say, hey, I know I've ridden with that guy. He's out there killing it and he's on the podium. So keep it up, keep everything you're going alive. But what do you think the series of events are that have to happen for someone that wants to race? So we already know the sacrifices that you've made for figuring out how you're going to pay the mortgage, commuting the 150 miles every day. But all right, now you've made the decision to go race. What is it that you need to do to make sure that you can be successful, whether it's the network around you, whether it's sponsorships, whether it's money, whether it's winning the lottery? What are other things that to go into? Yeah, attitude, personality. What's all of everything that goes into racing?
I mean, everything you guys just mentioned, it takes all of it to be successful. So a lot of what I did was, capitalizing, get in where you fit in was a great motto, because I'm really bad about hitting my goals, but not realizing that I hit them because I didn't hit them the way that I thought it should happen, right? It took longer, or I had to go through 4 other people to get what I was after. And so I had to slow down and remind myself that, oh, hey, you're still checking pretty major goals off, even though it didn't happen the way you wanted. So get in where you fit in was really, really a big deal, because almost nothing has happened the way that my brain laid it all out and how it should happen. But the end result is, it still always happens if you keep grinding. And then everything is all social networking. Who's in your network? It's sort of sad from time to time to say it's all about who you know. But that who you know is a big deal. And part of, being successful on any platform is just being the who you know is being that guy for other people as well. Just really genuinely trying to help forward and help motivate everybody that is going the direction you're trying to go.
You didn't know particularly anybody when you started in racing, though.
No, yeah, I had no background in racing whatsoever. No family in it, no nothing. It was all just friends that I enjoyed mutual enjoyments with. Like you said, how we met you guys was all. That was all the road to where I'm at today.
He's a social butterfly.
Yeah, it says a lot about your personality too. It is about who you know, but it's also about how you got to know them, right?
Yeah,
you're surrounded by great people because you're a great person. People want to be around who they want to be, I guess.
Yep.
So when people are around Jake, they're happy, and it's easy to grow a network. I mean, it's so true. I mean, whether it's 2 a.m., you're on a night ride, the guy that shows up with a stereo is usually you. That's going to get the party going.
It's so everywhere.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So coming from a little bit of a sponsorship background, I worked for Nitro Circus. I did a lot of communications back and forth with sponsors who were looking for athletes, and racing's expensive. So we're always, I'm sure, out there looking for sponsors. How are you finding sponsors? How are you keeping these relationships? And what do you think is making you successful in getting those parts or money or cars that you need to keep your career going?
Yeah, so it's still, I try to just be a good person and be, positive and uplifting. And then everything else kind of, falls under that category. That's, yeah, performance is a huge part. As far as sponsorship goes, it's the same thing. Like I've acquired some incredible sponsors, and really some big name, top tier, top level racing sponsorship. And it's all, none of it really happens, as fast as you want or how you want it to happen. But just really being a positive, uplifting, always have a good message. Performance is huge. I've been really fortunate to have a lot of success. A lot of that was how I started. Zollege Racing Products was an amazing foundation to start with. Like, don't half-ass anything. If you're gonna go do it all the way and do it right. Put 100% effort into it. But on the sponsorship side, it's not really. There's guys that win everything and they're terrible to talk to, or they're a bit harsh. And then there's guys that are the nicest people in the world that don't have much success. So it really is like all of the portions and all every facet of it, all matters. Every little bit of it. You don't have to be the best at any one. Obviously, that's a good thing, but. That's how I found success in sponsorship, and then try to over deliver and under ask. I mean, it's a slow progress for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is personality. I mean, just the first thing that pops off the top of my head is I'm a huge Formula One fan, and Daniel Ricciardo is like one of my favorite drivers of all time. He's almost never in the top 10 anymore. Used to be constantly, but has like the personality of a lifetime, and it's like, how can you turn him away for anything when he's got the personality everybody wants, even though he might not be getting in those top 3 positions every race. Like, people still sponsor him and they still keep him going because of his personality. And I think you have a lot of those same traits. And I think that's a good thing. So
yeah, it goes to show how far personality can go. I mean, like Steph said, back in the Nitro Circus days, she worked for him, but I was constantly around and, spend time with some of the big names like Travis Pastrana. And there's something I'll never forget that Travis told me is there was an event that he was at. He had to make it to a flight, right? And he was cutting it really close. And he stopped and he took a picture with just about everybody on the way. I remember I had the chance to ask him, like, hey, don't you ever get stressed that you're going to miss your flights? And he turned to me and very gracefully said, hey, look, these people are who pay my salary. They're the ones that help me do what I want to do with my career, which is pretty much anything I want. Right. So that's the attitude that you can kind of shadow with success. And I think you can see a lot of people with that same attitude that have made it to the top. So definitely goes a long way. And then next to that, what you'd mentioned about, giving it your all and surrounding yourself with good people is when we talked with our last podcast guest, Tyrell said, when you want to start something, just tell 5 of your best friends and go do it. Right. So surround yourself with good people, find 5 people that have, common synergies and then go get it. That's cool. So Adre, it's not all about Jake.
Adre's made a lot of sacrifices.
Yeah, Adre's made a ton of sacrifices.
More so than me.
Yeah, I mean, she's paying the bills. You're getting a free ride right now.
No,
I know. I saw all the work you put into the new studio, the new salon. So looks like you guys are making progress there. So Adre, let's go back to what made you want to start your own business. Like what made you love animals, clearly. Like I know you love your pets, like probably more than anything. And I think I've probably every time I've seen you, I have seen Mystique, definitely.
right. Right over here.
So what was it? What made you want to start your own business?
I was working at PetSmart. Just got tired of like the corporate grind, and my stars aligned, and I jumped on it.
Very cool.
That's it.
So you make it sound like it's so easy. Like, I just was going to commute for 150 miles a day, and I just quit my awesome job, and I'm racing now, right? Like it's not.
So talk a little bit more, Adre, about what you do, what your business is, and how you left PetSmart and just jumped into where you are today. Because I feel like what we're seeing online and what I get to see of like Jake's social media and like you guys doing things together, it's a pretty big business. Like you've grown something really incredible for yourself. So how did you get there? What made you do that?
I loved animals. So I knew that was my calling, was animals. And like I said, I started at PetSmart. I was grooming there. And then I just got tired of the corporate. And I went to my friend and Shelly. I was like, hey, I'm tired of the corporate. Can I come work with you for a while? And she was like, oh, yeah, of course. She was actually my babysitter when I was younger.
Who you know?
So we showed horses together, stuff like that when I was younger. So I was always involved in animals. And so in PetSmart's contract, I had to be 10 miles away for 6 months. So Shelly was where I could go. So it went there for 6 months, and then the opportunity arose to start one in Idaho Falls. I was originally going to do it with her, and then I was doing a lot of the work and stuff, and I was just like, why don't I just do this on my own? And so I did. Jake helped me. He did the flooring in there, remodeled, all kinds of stuff, and we jumped on it. First 3 months were absolutely terrible. I was working whatever day they wanted, trying to get clientele, because this was all new to me. Working at a corporate, they supply the clientele for you. When I was in Shelly, I didn't have much of a clientele. Jake was making the bills. And so when I went to Idaho Falls, started my own, I had a different mindset of what I wanted to do at first. I wanted to do a boutique, like a high-end fancy boutique, but Idaho Falls at that point didn't really support that. And so I was like, well, I'm going to bust ass and groom, I guess. That's what I know how to do. And I was originally trying to hire booth rentals like a hair salon would do. That didn't work out. Lesson learned, that didn't work, but you don't know until you try. So I tried it, didn't work. I was like, dude, I'm just going to do it by myself. Like me and Mystique for a whole year. Me and her. And then I slowly started hiring people. They weren't successful because my mindset wasn't successful. But we learned. And then I was at that location for 5 years and then had to move because they sold the building. And so that was super scary. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Anyway, I was going to groom out my garage at one point. Do mobile, whatever I had to do, because I had enough clientele at that point that I could make it work. And so then we found a place on Channing, which is where the hospital is located. Amazing location. And we looked at it, and I was a little discouraged, like, oh, this is going to be so much work, but the location's right. So we jumped on that. At that point, I think I had maybe 2 employees, maybe 1.
Yeah.
It wasn't very many. So jumped on that, signed contracts for 3-year contract at that building. He wanted me to sign 5. But with Jake's Racing, we're like, oh, I don't know if we'll be here in 5 years. I don't want to sign a 5-year contract. So signed 3-year, we remodeled it, made it very beautiful. Probably one of the prettiest salons in Idaho Falls. And then that location's really what boomed my business.
Yep.
Location is so important. And that's one of the things I always tell all the girls that I train, like, location, location, location. We took over the entire building because I had outgrown the area I was at.
Yeah.
And so it was either move completely or take over the entire building, which that was scary. Glad we did it, but it was scary. It was a lot of back and forth. Should we do this? Can we do this? I don't know.
It was like 5 times the cost to, 5x the cost of what you're doing. So it was a big deal.
Financial risk.
Yeah, sometimes it's those things that like force growth.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked to people too that have grown into a facility. You first move in, you're like, how am I ever going to fill this? And then 3 months later, you're like, I need more space.
I need 10 times this space.
Can we get a bigger space? Now we need to move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you went from grooming. Sorry. Go ahead, Jake.
No, you're fine. I was going to say what Adre fails to mention in there that she maybe purposely tries to forget. On her journey from the bottom up, there was points where she was like riding a bike to work because she had no money for fuel. I mean, and she's too proud to ask for any help, right? Because we're all strong, independent people.
Yeah.
And anyway, I mean the sacrifices, like that's anybody that has anything has worked their tails off, and I mean like they've seen the bottom for sure. So Adre's roots are as humble as they get. There was definitely no handouts. I mean, it was just trial and error to keep going and find what works. And she's still working through that.
Yep.
Well, and I think her humbleness maybe comes off as like my path was easy, because she does just go, oh, I had struggles, but no big deal. But
Yeah.
growing a business from nothing, leaving a job you had to kind of go out and figure it out on your own, that's a big risk. And it takes a lot of kind of organization in financials and trying to figure out, okay, I have nothing. I want to start this on my own. How do I start? What money do I need? And I think a lot of that is having someone with you who's supportive, who's like, we'll figure this out. But you guys clearly had a plan, and it's working out really well for you, and you're very successful. But it's not as easy as maybe you make it sound. Like Jake just said, there were times when you were riding a bike to work because you didn't have money to pay for gas. And I think that's kind of the I don't know, coin flip moment where people either go one way or the other. And they're either saying, okay, I don't have enough money to drive my car to work, I'm going to give up. Or they say, no, I'm going to get on my bike and ride my bike to work and figure it out. And I think there's one of two directions people go, and you chose to ride your bike to work because it was something that you wanted to do and you believed that it was your path. And I think it's really cool. People need to understand that like things aren't given to you, and it's not all that easy to create your own business or to do your own thing. But if you have the drive and if you want it enough, you'll make it happen.
Yep.
Yeah, I think being flexible in your approach too, like you mentioned, you started off with a different idea. You had a different vision, and it didn't go the way that you had thought, but you quickly adjusted what your business is, and that helped you move forward. And I think that's something that's really important too, is I guarantee a lot of products don't ever start out exactly as how they were intended, or a lot of companies, right? They're always something. In fact, there's things that I've done. The off-road company I had back in the day, it actually started just kind of out of a quick idea because I needed something for myself, and it scaled into a pretty big company before it was let go. But it's things like that where if you're flexible in your approach, you're gonna find success. And Adre, you went from a groomer at PetSmart. Yeah, you went from a groomer at PetSmart to wearing multiple hats that forced you to be a marketer, a CEO, a woman in business, right? Which is difficult. You know, there's a lot of different bias out there, and Stephanie can talk about those, but you know, that's harder in itself of going out and getting support, whether you're going to, get a loan from the bank or to work things out. You know, unfortunately there is a bias out there that makes it difficult to be a female leader in business. So there's a lot of different struggles that you go through to get where you're at, and, you know, accolades to you for being able to be flexible in your approach to say, hey, look, I might not know how to figure out location as a marketing tactic, but I learned, or, you know, maybe I need to pay for AdWords because I've never even looked at a Google ad before, but now I need them to run my business. Where now you're forced to do all these really cool things, which at the end of the day make you way more powerful in anything you do, right? That can tie to racing. I mean, racing in itself, you're an entrepreneur, Jake. You're framing a business based off of your personality and your skill.
You're selling yourself. Yeah.
You're selling yourself. You're selling who you are. You're selling your personality in a way that it's going to support someone else's business, i.e. your sponsors, right? So what you learn in your pet salon, I'm sure resonates with Jake, with what you're doing, with everything that you're doing in your race career and everything you did at that nuclear facility too. You know, you took a lot from that. I'm sure you still use. Is there anything that you still use in your racing, whether it's like negotiations or tying sponsorships or budgeting or whatever, that you've taken from like an outside skill that wasn't tied to racing? Anything you can think of?
I mean, I can't really think of any like one specific thing, but it's all just like, we don't really have any, you know, like you grow up as a kid and everyone's like, oh, I love Michael Jordan or whoever. We don't really have any, you know, one person that we idolize. We just try to pick
good people.
Mentors that we, you know, people that are where we would like to be, and just pay attention to their traits, whether it's personality, you know, their habits, their goals, you know, what they're doing to get to where they're going, and try to mirror that as best as you can has honestly been a lot of our a lot of our tools. So like Adre wanted out of PetSmart because it didn't work for her lifestyle and what we were trying to do.
Yeah, I just never had weekends off was
Yep.
what it came down to. And I'd worked there for 5 years. There was girls getting weekends off because they had families where I didn't have kids. I didn't get weekends off. And like we tried to buy a house and everything that didn't work out. Like everything happens for a reason. But yeah, crazy how we got where we're at.
Yeah, so I think that was Adri's reason for getting out of it was, just making it cater to her lifestyle, and she wanted it bad enough that it was worth chasing. So
We are.
yeah, right.
I think the same thing.
Jake's like the manager for Pet Central. He gets all the girl drama.
Oh boy. I think you probably run into the same thing in racing, Jake. I'm sure the career can't be just this really super easy path. I'm sure it's been a bit of a struggle at times. So if you want to continue racing and you don't have sponsors or ways to pay to continue to do that, what have you done? How have you, I guess, made it work moving forward to pay for the races? I mean, it's not cheap to race. The cars aren't cheap to build. So how have you done that and built, I guess, yourself to where you are?
Yep. So when I've kind of had Reckless Motorsports is my UTV like repair shop and kind of just side business. I've been doing that for like 5 or 6 years, basically the whole duration of my racing career. I went and worked after I quit Zollinger Racing Products. My goal actually, we sold our house. Again, it was some huge sacrifices. I mean, it was like, this may fail and we might lose everything, but it was worth the jump to us. We sold our house almost 3 years ago now, and got out of debt. So that was the big push that we needed. You got to make your payments, right? Sold our house, got out of debt, and that gave me the ability to not have to make a ton of money. So then I quit and came back. We rented a house that's got kind of a little shop in it. And my plan was to go like full time doing just, UTV repair work, selling parts, install insurance work. And my racing, like I said, everything, it all doesn't really happen how you want. So I was planning on fully intending working, repairing UTVs and fixing them up to pay the bills, and racing just kind of still was such a priority that I've put more focus on making money racing through partnership and sponsorship, and just avenues that way, that I've been more successful making money on that front. But it's because that's where I'm putting more of my effort. Reckless Motorsports has certainly helped, and that's filled a lot of voids. But where your heart is and where you're really pushing 100% was racing for me. And so that's actually been more successful even now than Reckless Motorsports. So,
and your sponsors are so kind and so amazing. And
yeah, that's, really, I couldn't do it without them. It's definitely a give and take partnership. I certainly hope that I'm worth the value to them that they give me, but, I'm always trying to improve on that front as well. I mean, it's like, never stops. The
hustle's always there.
Yeah. Never gets easier, really.
So what is next? What I know you're gonna be back this fall. You're gonna have your car built back up, and you're gonna back in hopefully in the next month or two, right, to get back on the track. But what's your end game? I know the ultimate goal in any form of racing is a full factory ride, right? So that's probably in your sights at some point, but what's your plan to get there? Or, what do you want to happen? If you had, magic wand, snap of the fingers, you can make happen today. What are those goals that you're chasing?
Yeah. So, we are, really close to factory sponsorship. There was actually some talk about it that went back and forth. COVID has kind of thrown a wrench in extracurricular activities. It made it all better for a while, and now it's kind of getting on the end of making it a little bit more difficult to chase that. But yeah, Polaris is one of my sponsors, and I'm obviously, my goal is to acquire factory racing sponsorship. I know that we can do a killer job for them, but like we mentioned, everything doesn't quite happen how you want it to. I really believe we would have factory sponsorship if there wasn't budget cuts and constraints that were related to COVID. So factory Polaris racing is 100% the next goal. That will get you to the point where you're not, trying to scrape the bottom, with spending all your money racing and then, having the little bit of extra time that you have to do reckless motorsports. Anyway, just that's the next goal. And then alongside that is just produce my own media in-house so that I am more valuable to all of my partners. So those are kind of the two big goals that I'm working toward and chipping away until I can get them done.
That's awesome. And that's a lot of fun too, that people like to follow your lifestyle, right? It's a dream for a lot of people. You guys are living the dream. And I'm glad you're able to, I'm glad you're able to share a little bit of the sacrifices it takes, because a lot of people think that it's impossible to get there, and clearly it's not, right? It just takes a little bit of elbow grease and some creative thinking, and you can truly get there to the top. And it's going to be cool seeing you snag a factory ride and watching you be successful. Even as the UTV industry continues to grow, I think the machines are they're just at the beginning, right? I remember my first 900 XP I had, I think it was a 2014, and that thing, it was the coolest RZR I'd ever owned. And now, I have the Pro XP on long travel that is a beastly machine that is a lot of fun to drive around. But even the new machines coming out, you see all these sneak peeks of patents and stuff. It's like, man, where's the game headed? And which makes it more competitive for you. And talking about like the Pro R, you're racing with the big boys in those Pro R machines. So hopefully the classes start to accommodate machines too and kind of shift things where they should be. But I'm interested to see just where racing's headed in general. Like, could it be, as big as, Formula One one day, you never know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Off-road is definitely still in its infancy as far as national exposure, and being followed. The live stream, internet, all of the technology is all, getting better and better, and off-road is still booming as far as popularity goes. So it's exciting.
Yeah, it's growing, and it grew a lot more throughout COVID. COVID brought a lot of bad to the world, but also a lot of people were forced to get outside. The airlines were shut down. So what do? Well, you either go to the lake, so a ton of boats were sold. Yeah. You go camping, a ton of RVs were sold, or you go out and you play on the trails. So mountain bikes and razors and everything. There's a lot more of it out there. So what that does is that just supports the industry. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of money coming in right now for a lot of new people enjoying that hopefully could take this sport to, whatever that next level is. And you're going to be part of that growth, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm super hopeful for the future. I think it's going to be awesome.
Cool. Well, we need to get out and ride again soon. I miss seeing you guys. But we need to, I wish we could have made it up to Coos Bay. It looked like it was a blast up there. Next year for sure. Yeah. We need to come up there. Cool. Well, thank you guys for jumping on the podcast and letting us hear about the sacrifices you've made to get where you are. We're going to certainly follow along. It's at your social media is at Jacob Versey, right? Is there an underscore?
Yeah. At Jake Versey. Yep.
At Jake Versey. And Reckless Motorsports for the side gig, just in case.
Yeah, this just in case. We're going to try to phase that out is the goal. But until then, we're going to keep hustling.
Perfect. And Adre, how do our Idaho followers get their pets pampered?
Pet Central.
Okay.
I think we need to drive our pets up there.
I know.